Hey everybody, this is Kodak here, and recently I was shopping at my local dollar store when I came across these. It's a complete set of multi-sided dice used for games like Dungeons and Dragons. And I know it looks like there's a lot of dice in here, seeing as they have like a red picture on the image card here, but it's a set of one of each of the dice you need for these games, all 7 of them, and it's not too shabby a set either. I mean, it's got these nice bright colors and these very crisp and clear numbers. I mean, I've spent more money on sets where the numbers are actually pretty hard to read, but it goes to show just how popular Dungeons and Dragons has become in the age of things like Critical Role and 5th edition that even dollar stores are carrying these kinds of dice sets now. Normally, this is a pretty expensive hobby. You have to have like 3 basic books that each run $30 a pop, and things like miniatures and playmats like this vinyl playmat I have here tend to run you a pretty penny. But this actually got me thinking, is it possible to create an entire Dungeons and Dragons experience using only what they sell at the dollar store? This was the challenge I wanted to impose on myself to see how well I could do it. Now, first I had to set a few ground rules for myself. Number 1, the setup must accommodate 1 dungeon master and 4 players and include at least 1 map-based combat sequence. I can't cheapen out and make it entirely roleplay and things like that where I don't need the map or the miniatures. I have to go that extra distance. Number 2, I must provide everything for the event except for tables and chairs. I cannot expect any of the players to have brought any of their own books, dice, miniatures, snacks, or stationery. Number 3, I cannot use digital facsimiles. They don't sell iPads at the dollar store after all, yet. The exception is that I am allowing myself to use the free basic rules put out on the Wizards of the Coast website that you can get for free and anybody can use to play Dungeons and Dragons, even though it only has 4 classes and a small assortment of monsters. Now, I could, if I wanted to, invoke a concept called SRD, which stands for System Rules Documents, which is a common practice where you are allowed to use the contents of the 3 basic rule books even if you do not own them. It's commonly used in the Adventurers Guild, and it's a pretty common and frequently used practice. However, I kind of want to go all the way with this without having to, like, spend the extra money or, like, pretend I can spend the extra money on the books, so I'm going to be sticking to these basic rules despite their limitations to give myself a bit of an extra challenge. Although, technically, if I really wanted to go, like, super hardcore on this idea, I could, like, buy a ring binder and a big ream of paper and jot down the entire rulebook like I'm writing the Book of Kells and buy, like, clay and sculpt and make my own miniatures, but accessibility is certainly something that I also want to keep in mind, and doing all of that stuff, even though I technically could, would kind of be missing the point. Otherwise, basically everything except for the venue, the mats, the props, materials, and of course snacks will have to come from the dollar store. And, well, we already have a set of dice, so let's head back out there and see what we can do. Okay, so here's my shopping list. I need dice, which I already have checked off because I already have a set, although finding more would be nice. For the combat encounter, I have the playmat, the player minis, and the monster minis so that I can get all that set up. That's probably going to be the toughest part. We, of course, have stationary things to write on and with, and a DM screen for me so that I can keep all of my stuff a secret from the players. We need terrain in order to really spice up that playmat, and, of course, snacks. All right, let's see what we can find. Well, I did hope to find extra dice. Oh, wait, hold it. These are even better. These. Problem is that big stand is a bit too large for what I need it for. I'd have to pare it down or something. Although dinosaurs do have rules in the book, don't they? Ooh, I like these. Ooh. Now, I'm sure I know what you guys are thinking. Hey, Kodak, how are you going to do the game mat? Are you going to take one of these big old poster boards and a ruler and draw a bunch of lines on it? Au contraire, mon frère. Well, allow me to show you the secret way, the Kodak life hack, you might call it. Because rather than looking in the stationery section, we need only look at the gift wrap. Because Here's an interesting thing about a lot of the gift wrap. A standard Dungeons & Dragons map has 1x1 squares. Now, I'm not sure how it is in other parts of the world, but around here, we have wrapping paper with grid lines on the back, and these grid lines are a 1x1. So yes, that is a pretty substantial amount of instant Dungeons & Dragons game mat right there in one little roll. Oh-ho. Oh, these are nice. These are handy for like spell beads, emergency miniatures, all sorts of good stuff. Oh, now here's something special. Well, I'm gonna be doing snacks. This means I need something to serve them in. Ah, here we go. Just a general word of advice when it comes to snacks on game night. You want to stick to things like pretzels, cookies, individually wrapped hard candies, because here's the thing, if you don't want to do like potato chips or Cheetos or pizza, because those leave like a residue, and since everybody's sharing the same space, that residue gets everywhere. Okay. Whew. I admit I might have overdone this a bit. I did buy a bunch of the things that that most households or places would typically have. I bought like bowls and pencils and stuff like that. But like I said, the point of this was to see how far I could go without getting utterly ridiculous. So we're gonna tuck into a bit of what I have here in a bit. But first, I do want to demonstrate the thing with the wrapping paper. Like what I said, this wrapping paper has special grid lines on it. At least they do in America, where we still use imperial measurements. I don't know if it's the same in places like Britain. With the wrapping paper you get at Poundland is the same, but if my guess is correct, then this wrapping paper will give us exactly what we need in order to play on without having to do anything too complicated. All right, moment of truth. Ah, yes, that's what I'm talking about. You see how this is like nearly indistinguishable from the grid paper. It might be a bit difficult to see because the lines are pretty faint, because they're not designed to be seen through the wrapping paper when you fully wrap it together. But yeah, this is a perfectly workable grid. It's a bit tricky to see from here, but yeah, it lines up perfectly with the grid that I have down here on my normal mat. But yeah, this is pretty good replacement for a Dungeons and Dragons map. And as an added bonus, if you know of like any teaching supply stores or like a Christian bookstore like Mardel, they tend to have like large, like really thin laminators that they tend to let you run anything through for pretty cheap. So if you take this stretch of wrapping paper, if you go and get it laminated, that's like $5, and you've gotten yourself a pretty decently huge rewritable game mat that you can do with dry erase markers. That's one of the lovely things about lamination, is it allows the dry erase markers to go on. But yeah, this is probably my personal favorite Dungeons and Dragons life hack, is to use the wrapping paper as a game mat. And I know I said I wasn't going to go too crazy on things before, but now it's time for a little bit of arts and crafts. Good evening, players, and welcome to the world of adventure. You admit you were a bit surprised when a well-to-do servant type barged into the tavern you were staying at, asking for help. He said it was an urgent matter for which you would be greatly compensated. It turns out that the mayoress's prized dog had been stolen, and she is offering a considerable reward for its recovery. Rogue, through your criminal contacts, you're aware that this breed of dog is actually really hard to get in this neck of the woods and would get you considerably more on the black market than what you're being offered for its rescue. And you are being offered quite a bit. There's no sugarcoating this though. As far as adventures go, this is a milk run. A well-paying milk run, but a milk run nonetheless. Other people from the tavern who had joined you walked away when they learned the story, but the four of you decided that the pay was worth the menial task. Fighter, as low as that survival roll was, these kidnappers were pretty sloppy. You easily find the set of fresh wagon tracks their getaway cart left behind and are soon following them into the woods. With that survival check, you do see the sort of common animal tracks you would expect to find in the woods, but even the kidnappers' efforts to disguise their tracks through water are a waste, as they can be easily seen on the opposite shore. After a few hours of travel, you finally come across this. In the middle of a forest clearing, you can see the smoldering remains of an ill-attended campfire, the food within having long since boiled over and caked to the side of the pot. Nearby, a simple wooden cart lies smashed to pieces, both of its axles broken, and only torn restraints where any beasts of burden might have been. There are no signs of human life, but amidst the wreckage of the wagon, you see a metal cage, and within that cage is a dog. When the dog finally sees you, it stands up and begins to bark in panic. Too late to calm it, and the barking has brought the attention of what likely caused this destruction. From the other end of the clearing, several snarling creatures emerge, flicking their claws and gnashing their teeth. However, the one leading them is a sight to behold. A horrible, corpulent mass with pus dripping from its jaws, its intestines filled to bursting to the point that the skin has torn open to reveal its guts. Despite this, it groans and staggers about as though it were starving to death. Cleric, that religion roll doesn't get you much. While it is clear that the large one is an undead creature, it is unlike anything you have ever encountered or researched. Initiative! Wizard, you have the first move. Casting Silent Image to make a herd of rabbits to distract these beasts. Roll a handle animal check to make them move like enticing prey. Did it work? You'll find out on their turn. Fighter, you run up to the cage to try to grab it and make a run for it, but upon closer inspection, you find it to be a very heavy and strong cage, intended more for dangerous beasts than regular dogs. Indeed, it's that very sturdiness that likely spared it from the fate of its kidnappers. Rogue, you run up to try to unlock the cage, but the cleric's words that the dog is currently safer inside of the cage for now ring true to you, so you instead draw your weapon and brace yourself next to the fighter. And I sure hope that was the right call, because now, it's my turn. Okay, yeah, this was fun. I admit I probably went overboard with a lot of the things that I could have done. You know, the drawing, the arts and crafts and all of that, but we still live in an age where Dungeons & Dragons is more accessible now than ever, with the free rules, a lot of free modules online, and even barring things like Roll20, the fact that I was able to pretty efficiently build a setup that could, you know, get some people around and together at the table. Like I said, if I dialed back on a lot of the theatrics, the arts and crafts, if I got like just the screen and the mat and, you know, the dice, you know, maybe not even the minis, maybe I could just use the spell drops or whatever other minis I have, you know, I could probably do this for way less than I actually wound up spending. But like I said, this was more an experiment to see just how far I could take this concept without getting absolutely absurd. But yeah, it is indeed possible to set up quite the Dungeons & Dragons experience using only things you can find at the dollar store. So yeah, I do other YouTube stuff, so feel free to like, subscribe, and share the video if you want to. I have a modest selection of merch, which includes the Kodak Box of Junk, which is a sampler of different card games. And if you like, you can check out my more famous videos of the 7 Deadly Trading Card Game Sins. Thanks for watching.